30,000 feet above the Pacific Ocean. A man who has never been denied anything in his life reaches for a pregnant woman's arm, and in doing so, seals his fate. Isabella Kang doesn't know that her husband's men are already tracking this flight, that Seo Junwoo has killed for less than the bruise forming on her wrist, or that the billionaire currently sneering at her dark skin will be begging for his life before sunrise. All she knows is the flutter of her unborn child and the cold certainty that this stranger has made a terrible mistake. Welcome to Black in Korea Stories, besties. Please like, share, and subscribe. The first-class cabin of Korean Air Flight 23 smells like champagne and leather, and Isabella Kang has never been more exhausted in her life. 23 weeks pregnant, recently returned from visiting her mother in Atlanta, she settles into seat 2A with a sigh that comes from somewhere deep in her bones. The window seat had been Junwoo's idea, his obsessive, protective, absolutely non-negotiable idea. "You'll want to see the sunrise over Seoul," he'd said, his hand pressed flat against the swell of her belly, his eyes softer than anyone in the Korean underworld would ever believe possible. "And I want you comfortable." "Every moment, Jajia, every single moment." Laughed at him then, at the way his jaw tightened when she suggested economy class would be fine. The look on his face had been almost wounded, as though she'd suggested their child be born in a barn. "My wife," he'd said quietly, dangerously, "does not fly in the back of the plane." So here she is, wrapped in a cashmere blanket she's certain cost more than her first car, her feet tucked into the airline slippers, her swollen ankles finally elevated. The baby kicks, a sharp jab to her ribs that makes her wince and smile at the same time. "I know," she murmurs, one hand curved protectively over her bump. "I miss him too." 3 weeks away from Junwoo had felt like 3 years. Her mother had needed her, a health scare that turned out to be nothing, thank God, but Isabella couldn't have stayed away. And Junwoo, despite every instinct screaming at him to follow, had remained in Seoul. Business, always business. The kind of business that came with armed guards and encrypted phones and men who bowed when he walked into a room. She doesn't think about what her husband does. Not really. Not in the daylight hours when she's choosing baby names and painting the nursery and pretending she married a normal man. At night, sometimes, when he comes home late with shadows in his eyes and blood that isn't his under his fingernails. Those nights, she knows. She's always known. From the moment she met Seo Junwoo at that gallery opening 2 years ago, watching him stare at a painting of chaos and destruction with an expression of perfect understanding, she'd known exactly what kind of man he was. She'd married him anyway. The cabin begins to fill with other first-class passengers. Businessmen in expensive suits, a K-pop idol traveling incognito, an elderly couple who look like they've been married for 50 years. Isabella watches them settle, her eyes heavy, the drone of the engines already lulling her toward sleep. And then he appears. Kang Tae-hyun strides into first class like he owns the aircraft, which for all Isabella knows he might. Late 40s, silver threading through perfectly styled hair, a suit that probably cost more than some people's houses. His face is handsome in that sharp, predatory way, all angles and entitlement. 2 assistants trail behind him, their tablets clutched like shields, their expressions carefully blank. Isabella barely notices him. She's already drifting, the baby finally settled, her body surrendering to the exhaustion of pregnancy and travel and missing her husband so much it feels like a physical wound. She doesn't see Tae-hyun's eyes land on her. Doesn't see the way his lip curls. Doesn't see him check his boarding pass, then check it again, then turn a shade of red that suggests his blood pressure medication isn't working. "Excuse me." Voice cuts through her drowsiness like a blade. Isabella blinks awake to find Kang Tae-hyun standing in the aisle beside her seat, his shadow falling across her face. She straightens, one hand instinctively moving to her belly. "In my seat." Isabella frowns, reaching for her boarding pass with a hand that isn't protecting her child. "I don't think so. This is 2A. I don't care what your ticket says." His voice is low enough that the other passengers can't hear, but sharp enough to make Isabella's spine stiffen. "I reserved this seat 6 months ago. There's been a mistake and you need to move." Something cold settles in Isabella's chest. She's faced this before, the assumption that she doesn't belong, that her presence in first class must be an error, that her dark skin somehow means she should make way for someone more appropriate. In the 2 years since she moved to Korea, she's learned to recognize that particular brand of quiet racism, the kind that hides behind polite words and reasonable tones. But she is not the same woman who arrived in Seoul, nervous and unsure. She is Isabella Kang, wife of Seo Junwoo, and she does not move for anyone. There's no mistake. Her voice comes out steady, calm, with just enough steel to make Tae-hyun's eyes narrow. This is my seat. If you have a problem, I suggest you speak with the flight attendant. For a long moment, he just stares at her. There's something calculating in his gaze, something that makes Isabella's skin crawl. He's not used to being refused, she realizes. Not used to being challenged by anyone, let alone a woman, let alone a black woman, let alone a pregnant black woman who refuses to shrink under his scrutiny. Do you know who I am? The question is almost laughable. Isabella has heard variations of it 100 times, from businessmen, from politicians, from men who thought their names would make her knees weak. None of them had ever made her knees weak. Only one man has ever had that power over her, and he's waiting in Seoul with an army at his command and a heart that beats only for her. No, she says simply. And I don't particularly care. Something shifts in Tae-hyun's expression. The cold calculation hardens into something uglier, something that looks like rage pressed through the filter of social acceptability. He glances around the cabin, nodding the other passengers carefully, not watching, the flight attendant still occupied with boarding procedures. And then he reaches for her arm. His grip is sudden and tight, fingers digging into the soft flesh above her elbow. Pain lances through her, sharp and immediate, and Isabella gasps, not for herself, but for the baby, for the spike of stress hormones flooding her system, for the tiny life that depends on her remaining safe and calm. Listen to me, Tae-hyun hisses, his face too close to hers. I am Kang Tae-hyun, CEO of Hanul Industries. I have a meeting in Seoul that could change the future of aviation in Asia, and I am not going to be inconvenienced by some. Sir. A flight attendant materializes beside them, her professional smile straining at the edges. Is there a problem? Tae-hyun releases Isabella's arm like she's contaminated. She immediately cradles the spot where his fingers dug in, feeling the ache that will become a bruise, feeling the baby shift restlessly inside her. Yes, there's a problem, Tae-hyun says smoothly, all trace of his venom hidden behind a businessman's mask. This woman is in my seat. I reserved it specifically. I need to see the manifest immediately. The flight attendant's eyes flick to Isabella, then to the boarding pass in her hand. Something complicated passes over her face: apology, embarrassment, the painful awareness that Kang Tae-hyun is exactly the kind of man who can end careers with a phone call. I'm sure we can sort this out, she says, but her voice has taken on that particular tone that Isabella recognizes instantly. The tone that means she's about to suggest Isabella move. The tone that means power and money are about to win the way they always do. I would like to speak to the captain. Every head in first class turns at Isabella's words. She doesn't raise her voice, she doesn't need to. 2 years of marriage to Junwoo has taught her that true power doesn't shout. It simply is. The flight attendant blinks. Ma'am, I don't think that's. My seat was purchased and assigned by Seo Junwoo. Isabella watches the name land, watches the flight attendant's face pale, watches Tae-hyun's expression flicker with the first hint of uncertainty. I'm his wife, and I'm 23 weeks pregnant with his child. This man just put his hands on me in front of witnesses and caused me physical pain. She rolls up her sleeves slightly, revealing the red marks that are already darkening to purple. I would like to speak to the captain. Now. The silence in first class is absolute. Isabella has never used Junwoo's name as a weapon before. She's never had to. His protection wraps around her like an invisible shield, keeping the worst of the world at bay. But she knows what that name means in Korea, knows the empire it represents, knows the fear it inspires in people who understand exactly what Seo Junwoo is capable of. Kang Tae-hyun clearly doesn't understand. Junwoo, he laughs, short and dismissive. The businessman. I've dealt with men like him before. New money trying to play with the real power players. He doesn't frighten me. Isabella almost feels sorry for him. Almost. He's not a businessman, Mr. Kang. She meets his eyes steadily. And yes, he should frighten you. Before Tae-hyun can respond, the flight attendant has returned with the senior purser and, remarkably, the co-pilot. The three of them cluster in the aisle, their voices low and urgent, their faces increasingly grave. Isabella catches fragments. Seo family. International incident. Absolutely cannot, and watches Tae-hyun's expression shift from arrogance to confusion to the first stirrings of alarm. Mrs. Kang. The senior purser approaches her with the careful deference usually reserved for heads of state. "We sincerely apologize for this situation. We're having Mr. Kang move to another seat immediately, and we've notified our team in Seoul to have medical personnel standing by when we land. Your comfort and safety are our highest priority. That won't be necessary," Tae-hyun begins. "Mr. Kang." The co-pilot's voice is ice. "You will move to seat 14B or you will be removed from this aircraft. Those are your options." The billionaire's face goes purple. For a moment, Isabella thinks he might actually argue, might actually try to fight against the machine that suddenly turned against him. But whatever connections Kang Tae-hyun has, whatever power he wields in the boardroom, he's smart enough to recognize when he's outmatched. He moves. But as he passes Isabella's seat, he leans down, his voice a whisper meant only for her. "This isn't over, Mrs. Kang. Your husband's name might buy you protection in the sky, but when we land, you'll learn that there are powers in Korea far greater than some criminal upstart." Isabella doesn't flinch. She doesn't respond. She simply watches him go, her hand pressed protectively over her belly, her heart beating steady and calm. Because she knows something Kang Tae-hyun doesn't know. She knows that Junwoo has already been notified. By now, his phone has buzzed with encrypted messages from the crew. Because of course he has people on every Korean air flight. Of course he monitors every journey she takes without him. Of course he's been tracking her from the moment she left Atlanta. She knows that somewhere in Seoul, her husband is standing very still, his beautiful face carved from stone, his dark eyes promising violence. And she knows that Kang Tae-hyun has approximately 13 hours to live. The rest of the flight passes in a blur. Isabella tries to sleep, but the baby is restless, kicking against her ribs as though sensing her distress. The bruise on her arm deepens to purple, then black, a perfect imprint of fingers that had no right to touch her. Flight attendants bring her food, drinks, pillows, blankets, offers to lie flat and rest, but nothing can ease the tight knot of anxiety in her chest. She texts Junwoo, "I'm okay. It's not that bad." His response comes immediately, "I saw the footage." Isabella closes her eyes. Of course he did. Of course someone on this flight has already sent him video of Kang Tae-hyun grabbing her, has already captured the moment a stranger put bruises on the wife of Seoul's most dangerous man. "Don't do anything stupid," she types. He doesn't respond. The hours crawl by. Isabella watches the sun rise over the Pacific, watches the clouds paint gold and pink across the endless blue, watches the shadow of land appear on the horizon as they approach Korea. Her home, her life, the place where everything changed. She met Seo Junwoo at the worst moment of her life. 2 years ago, Isabella had been a different woman, an art historian specializing in East Asian antiquities, recently hired by the National Museum of Korea as a guest curator. She'd left Atlanta with stars in her eyes and a broken heart, determined to reinvent herself on the other side of the world. A failed engagement, a career that needed rescuing, a desperate desire to prove she was more than what she'd left behind. The gallery opening had been her first public event in Seoul. She'd spent hours preparing, the perfect dress, the perfect shoes, the practiced Korean phrases she'd memorized on the flight over. She was terrified and exhilarated and so profoundly alone that the champagne tasted like tears. And then she'd seen him. He was standing in front of a painting called Storm's Eye, a massive canvas of black and red and gold, chaos given form, destruction made beautiful. Everyone else at the party gave him space, a wide bubble of emptiness that spoke louder than whispers. He was beautiful in a way that made her chest ache, sharp jaw, elegant cheekbones, dark eyes that seemed to hold every shadow in the world. But it wasn't his beauty that drew her. It was the expression on his face as he studied the painting. The recognition, the understanding, the perfect, terrible piece of a man who knew exactly what it felt like to be the storm. She should have walked away. Every survival instinct she possessed screamed at her to turn around, to forget that face, to never speak to a man whose stillness felt more dangerous than other men's violence. Instead, she walked toward him. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" The words left her mouth before she could stop them. English, not Korean, because her nerves had stolen her second language. He turned to look at her, those dark eyes sweeping over her face, her body, the champagne glass trembling slightly in her hand. "Beautiful," he repeated, his English perfect, accentless. "Is that what you see?" "I see pain." She hadn't meant to say that either, but something about his eyes demanded truth. Pain that became power, destruction that became creation. The moment when everything breaks and something new begins. He stared at her for a long moment. Later, he would tell her that was the exact second he knew he would have her, keep her, never let her go. In that moment, all Isabella knew was that she couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't tear her gaze away from the man who looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. "Junwoo," he said finally, extending his hand. "Kingsley." His hand closed around hers, warm and strong and impossibly gentle. "Isabella!" He said her name like it was a prayer, like it was a weapon, like it was the only word in any language that mattered. "You shouldn't be here." "Probably not." She smiled, surprised by her own boldness. "Are you going to make me leave?" Something flickered in his eyes, amusement perhaps, or appreciation. "I have a feeling that would be very difficult." "You have no idea," he laughed. The sound was rusty, unused, like he'd forgotten how. Around them, the party guests fell silent, staring at the impossible sight of Seo Junwoo laughing, of Seo Junwoo talking to a woman, of Seo Junwoo looking at someone like she was the first sunrise after a century of darkness. That night, he took her to dinner. The next night, he took her to the opera. The night after that, he took her to his penthouse and kissed her so thoroughly that she forgot her own name, forgot everything except the taste of him and the desperate need building in her blood. It took 3 months for her to learn the truth about what he did. 3 months of unexplained absences, of phone calls that made his jaw clench, of men in expensive suits who bowed when he entered and looked at him with something that might have been fear or might have been worship. The night she found out, she'd walked into his office unannounced and found him standing over a kneeling man, his sleeves rolled up, his hands covered in blood that wasn't his own. She should have run. She should have screamed, should have called the police, should have fled back to America and never looked back. That's what a sensible woman would do. That's what a good woman would do, but Isabella had never claimed to be good. "Does he deserve it?" she'd asked, her voice steady despite the horror churning in her stomach. Junwoo had looked at her with those dark, dark eyes. "Yes." "Then finish." He did. And afterward, when the man had been dragged away and the blood cleaned up and the office returned to its pristine state, Junwoo had stood before her with something like fear on his face. Fear that she would leave, that she would hate him, that she would finally see the monster and run. Instead, she'd taken his hand and led him to the bedroom. They never talked about that night. They never talked about the things Junwoo did, the empire he ruled, the darkness that lived beneath his expensive suits and gentle touches. But she knew. She always knew. And she stayed anyway, because the monster who killed for power was also the man who woke her with kisses, who sang lullabies to her pregnant belly, who cried on their wedding night because he never believed he could have something so beautiful. The plane begins its descent into Seoul. Isabella watches the city emerge from the clouds, millions of lights stretching to the horizon, the Han River cutting through the urban sprawl like a silver ribbon. Home. She's almost home. The landing is smooth, professional, unremarkable. But as the aircraft taxis toward the gate, Isabella notices something strange. Through the window, she can see the tarmac, and it's not empty. Black SUVs line the runway. Dozens of them, their headlights cutting through the pre-dawn darkness. Men in suits stand beside them, their postures military straight, their eyes fixed on the arriving plane. Isabella's phone buzzes. "Don't be scared," reads the message from Junwoo. "I'm coming to get you." The cabin door opens. Outside, Isabella can hear shouting. Kang Tae-hyun's voice, demanding to know what's happening, demanding to speak to someone in charge, demanding to be treated with respect. He falls silent very quickly. A flight attendant appears at Isabella's seat, her face pale. "Mrs. Kang. Your husband has arranged for you to disembark first. There's a situation with one of the other passengers." Isabella stands, gathering her things, moving toward the exit on legs that feel steadier than they have any right to. The baby kicks, once, twice, as though sensing that something momentous is about to happen. The first thing she sees when she steps onto the jet bridge is Junwoo. He's standing at the end of the corridor, surrounded by his men but somehow utterly alone. His face is carved from stone, his dark eyes burning with a rage so profound it seems to warp the air around him. He's beautiful and terrible, her husband, her monster, the father of her child. Isabella. Name on his lips is like a lifeline. She crosses the distance between them in seconds, falling into his arms, pressing her face against his chest and breathing in the familiar scent of him, sandalwood and smoke and something darker underneath. "I'm okay," she whispers against his shirt. "Junwoo, I'm okay." His arms tighten around her, one hand cupping the back of her head, the other spread protectively across her belly. The bruise doesn't hurt. Don't lie to me. His voice is gentle, but there's an edge to it that makes her shiver. You never lie to me, Jadzia. Don't start now. She pulls back to look at his face. It hurts, but I'm okay. The baby is okay. That's what matters. Touched you. The words come out in Korean now, low and lethal. He put his hands on my wife. On my child. Jun-woo. I want to see it. She hesitates, then slowly rolls up her sleeve. The bruise is fully developed, now dark purple edged with black, Kang Tae-hyun's fingerprints preserved in damaged flesh. She watches her husband's face as he sees it, watches the rage solidify into something cold and absolute, watches the last traces of mercy drain from his eyes. Where is he? One of his men steps forward. Being held in the security office. He tried to resist. His arm is broken. He's demanding to speak to his lawyers. Junwoo doesn't respond. He's still staring at the bruise on Isabella's arm, his thumb tracing the edge of it with devastating gentleness. You need to stay here, he says finally, looking into her eyes. I have people who will take you home. Dr. Choi is waiting. She'll check you and the baby, make sure everything is okay. What are you going to do? He doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. Junwoo. She catches his arm as he turns to leave. Don't kill him. Silence stretches between them. Around them, his men stand frozen, witnesses to a conversation that would be fatal for anyone else to hear. He hurt you, Junwoo says quietly. He hurt my child. I know, and he'll pay for it. I know he will. You'll make sure of it. She reaches up to touch his face, her palm against his jaw, grounding him the way she always has. But not like this. Not tonight. I need you with me, Junwoo. I need you home in our bed, not covered in blood you can't wash away. Something shifts in his eyes, the rage retreating just slightly, making room for something softer, something that looks like love. You don't ask me for things, he murmurs. You never ask. I'm asking now. Come home with me. Deal with him tomorrow, please. A long moment, he doesn't move. She can feel the war inside him, the monster that demands blood, the man who would do anything for her. Both of them live inside Seo Junwoo, and both of them belong to her. Take my wife home, he says finally to the man standing nearest. I'll follow within the hour. Junwoo, within the hour. He leans down and presses his lips to her forehead, lingering there like he's trying to memorize the feel of her. I promise, Jadzia, I just need to deliver a message. She knows what that means. She knows that Kang Tae-hyun is about to experience terror unlike anything he's ever imagined. But she also knows her husband, knows that when he makes a promise, he keeps it. The hour, she says. I'll be waiting. Ride to the penthouse takes 40 minutes through Seoul's dawn-quiet streets. Isabella sits in the back of the bulletproof SUV, surrounded by men who would die for her without hesitation, staring out at a city that's become home in ways she never expected. The baby is quiet now, settled, as though sensing that the danger has passed. But has it? Something about Kang Tae-hyun's final words keeps circling in her mind. There are powers in Korea far greater than some criminal upstart. He'd said it with conviction, the certainty of a man who believed he had allies capable of standing against Seo Junwoo. What if he was right? What if, in defending herself, Isabella had triggered something far worse than a billionaire's wounded pride? The penthouse is quiet when she arrives. Dr. Choi is waiting, as promised. The examination is thorough but gentle, blood pressure elevated but not dangerous, fetal heartbeat strong and steady, no signs of distress. The baby is healthy. Everything is fine, everything is fine. So why does Isabella feel like the worst is yet to come? She waits in the master bedroom, wrapped in one of Junwoo's shirts, her hands pressed to her belly. The clock on the nightstand marks the passing minutes, 45, 50, 55. At exactly 1 hour, the door opens. Junwoo stands in the doorway, his hair disheveled, his tie loosened. His knuckles are bruised, she sees that immediately, but there's no blood on his clothes. Whatever message he delivered, it was restrained, mostly. You came, I promised. He crosses to her, sinking onto the bed, pulling her into his arms. I will always keep my promises to you, Jadzia. She curls against him, breathing in his warmth, feeling the tension slowly drain from her body. What did you do to him? Nothing he won't recover from. His voice is dark with satisfaction. His company, on the other hand, that won't recover. By morning, Hanul Industries will be a memory, his assets, his properties, his reputation gone. He'll spend the rest of his life knowing exactly what happens to men who touch my wife. Isabella should feel guilty. She should feel something like mercy for a man whose life has just been destroyed. She doesn't. Good, she whispers. Junwoo's arms tighten around her. Good. He put his hands on me, on our child. She lifts her head to meet his eyes. I don't feel sorry for him, Junwoo. I feel sorry for anyone stupid enough to threaten this family. Something ignites in his gaze, pride, perhaps, or love so fierce it burns. This is why I married you. I'm vindictive. Because you're strong. He cups her face in his hands. Because you never pretend to be something you're not, because you looked at the monster and saw a man worth loving. You're not a monster. I am. His thumb traces her cheekbone. But I'm your monster, and I will destroy anyone who threatens what's ours. She believes him. But as she drifts towards sleep in his arms, Kang Tae-hyun's words echo in her mind one final time. There are powers in Korea far greater. What happens when those powers come for them? The answer comes 3 days later, delivered by a woman Isabella has never seen before. She's in the nursery, hanging the last of the watercolor paintings she'd made during her pregnancy. Soft images of mountains and rivers, and a small child running through fields of flowers. The kind of peaceful scenes she hopes her son will grow up to know, even though his father's empire is built on blood. The doorbell rings. Isabella frowns. Visitors to the penthouse are always announced in advance. Junwoo's security protocols allow for nothing else. She reaches for the panic button installed beside the nursery door, her other hand moving instinctively to her belly. Kang, one of the guards, appears in the doorway. His face is pale. There's someone here to see you. She says she's from the National Intelligence Service. Slides down Isabella's spine. Where's my husband? In a meeting. We've notified him, but show her in. Guard hesitates. Mrs. Kang, perhaps it would be better to wait. Show her in. Woman who enters the penthouse moves like a predator, smooth, contained, every gesture economical and precise. She's Korean, mid-40s, beautiful in a severe way that suggests beauty has never been her priority. Her eyes sweep the room once, cataloging everything before settling on Isabella. Mrs. Kang, I'm Director Yoon Hae-jin. Thank you for seeing me. Don't recall having a choice. Isabella keeps her voice steady, her hand still resting on her belly. What does the National Intelligence Service want with me? Straight to business. I appreciate that. Director Yoon settles into one of the living room chairs without waiting to be invited. May I? Isabella doesn't answer. After a moment, Yoon continues anyway. 3 days ago, your husband destroyed one of the largest aviation companies in Asia. Hanwha Industries is now worthless, its CEO disgraced, its assets seized, its reputation in ruins. She tilts her head slightly. That's quite a response to a bruise. That bruise was on a pregnant woman, his pregnant wife. I understand the emotional context. Yoon's voice remains pleasant, conversational. What concerns me is the economic context. Hanwha Industries employed 40,000 people. Those people are now out of work. The supply chains they supported are now disrupted. The aviation industry as a whole is now destabilized. You're blaming me for that? Informing you of consequences. Yoon leans forward slightly. Your husband is powerful, Mrs. Kang. Perhaps the most powerful man in Seoul who doesn't hold public office. For years, he's operated in the shadows. Illegal, yes, but contained. Manageable. The government has tolerated his existence because he maintains order in places we cannot reach. This incident with Kang Tae-hyun suggests that tolerance may have been a mistake. Yoon's eyes are sharp, measuring. Your husband has become unpredictable, emotional. He's making decisions based on personal vengeance rather than strategic calculation. That makes him dangerous. Isabella's heart pounds, but she keeps her expression neutral. What exactly are you threatening? Nothing. Yet. Yoon stands, smoothing her jacket. Consider this a courtesy call, Mrs. Kang. A warning from someone who would prefer not to see this situation escalate. Your husband has powerful enemies, men who have been waiting for any sign of weakness. Kang Tae-hyun's destruction has given them ammunition. What kind of ammunition? The kind that could bring down an empire. Yoon moves toward the door, then pauses. I understand you're pregnant, that your child will be born into this world your husband has created. I hope for that child's sake that you're able to convince your husband to exercise more restraint. She's gone before Isabella can respond. For a long moment, Isabella stands frozen in the living room, her mind racing. The NIS doesn't make courtesy calls. They don't warn people out of kindness. Whatever Director Yoon's true purpose was, it wasn't concern for Isabella's well-being. It was a message. But from whom? Junwoo arrives 30 minutes later, his face tight with controlled fury. I heard. Min-soo told me. He pulls Isabella into his arms, his hands sweeping over her belly as though reassuring himself the baby is still there. Are you all right? Fine, but Junwoo, I know. His jaw clenches. Yoon Hae-jin, she's been a problem for years, always watching, always gathering information. She's never approached you directly before. Said you have enemies. Enemies who see what happened with Tae-hyun as weakness. Of course she did. He releases her, packing toward the window. Below them, Seoul stretches to the horizon, millions of people living their lives, unaware of the power struggles playing out above their heads. She's trying to destabilize us, make you doubt, make you pressure me to back down from whatever confrontation she thinks is coming. There's a confrontation coming. He doesn't answer immediately. That silence tells her everything. Junwoo, Park Yoon-jae. The name falls from his lips like a curse. She's the daughter of Park Sung-jin, a rival my father killed 20 years ago. She's been rebuilding his empire in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. Isabella remembers the night she found out about Junwoo's true nature, the man kneeling in his office, the blood on his hands. She remembers choosing to stay. But this is different. This is a threat not just to her husband, but to her child. What does she want? Everything, my territory, my men, my life. His eyes meet hers in the reflection of the window. And now that she knows about you, about the baby, she has leverage she didn't have before. The words hit Isabella like physical blows. She's going to come after us. She's going to try. Junwoo turns to face her. But she won't succeed. I've been preparing for this, Jajia, building defenses, eliminating her allies one by one. The only reason she's still breathing is because I couldn't find her. Now I have a lead. Something dark flickers in his eyes. The gallery in Gangnam, Eternal Spring. It's a front for her money laundering operation. I've had people watching it for months, and yesterday one of them finally saw something useful. Isabella's mind shifts into the analytical mode that made her one of the most respected art historians in her field. What kind of gallery? East Asian antiquities. Why? Because that's my specialty. She moves toward him, her hands finding his. Junwoo, I can help. Let me see the records, the authentication documents, anything they've used to move money. If there's a pattern, I'll find it. Not fragile. Her grip tightens on his hands. I'm not useless, and I refuse to sit here waiting for someone to hurt my family while there's something I can do to stop it. He stares at her for a long moment. She can see the war in his eyes, the desperate need to protect her fighting against the knowledge that she's right. That her skills could be the key to finding Park Yoon-jae before Park Yoon-jae finds them. Records arrive tonight, he says finally. But Isabella, you look at them from here. You don't go to the gallery, you don't put yourself in danger. Agreed. I mean it. His hands cup her face. If anything happened to you, nothing will happen to me. She rises on her toes to kiss him. I have you. Records arrive at midnight, delivered by Min-soo in a locked case. Isabella spreads them across the dining room table, her eyes scanning invoices and authentication certificates and provenance records. Junwoo hovers nearby, watching her work, unable to stay away even though there are a dozen other things demanding his attention. These certificates are good, she murmurs, more to herself than to him. Professional, but the watermarks are wrong. They're using a template from 2019, before the International Authentication Bureau updated their security features. What does that mean? It means someone's cutting corners. And when people cut corners with authentication documents, it usually means they're hiding something bigger. She pulls out a magnifying glass, examining the paper more closely. This provenance documentation for the Tang Dynasty horse. It claims the piece was acquired at a Hong Kong auction in 2019. But I was consulted on 3 lots at that auction. This horse wasn't among them. Junwoo leans over her shoulder, his breath warm against her hair. So they're lying. They're fabricating entire histories, and that means... She trails off, her eyes narrowing at a pattern she's only just beginning to see. That means the pieces themselves might not be the point. What if they're using them as containers? Containers for what? I don't know yet, but look. She spreads the shipping manifests across the table. Every major shipment arrives on the 15th of the month, without fail. That's not random, Junwoo. That's a schedule. His expression sharpens. The 15th is in 4 days. Then we have 4 days to figure out what they're bringing in and use it against them. The next 4 days pass in a blur of analysis and preparation. Isabella works through the nights, mapping connections, identifying patterns, building a picture of Park Yoon-jae's operation that grows more disturbing with every revelation. The gallery isn't just laundering money, it's coordinating something. Every 15th of the month, a shipment arrives. And every 15th, something happens elsewhere in the city. A deal gone wrong, a competitor eliminated, a piece of Junwoo's territory threatened. It's a command center, she tells Junwoo on the 3rd night. The shipments aren't just bringing merchandise, they're bringing orders. Park Yoon-jae is running her entire operation through that gallery. Then we raid it. Isabella shakes her head. If we raid it, we tip her off. She disappears, regroups, comes back stronger. We need to use it against her. Let her think her network is secure while we systematically dismantle it. Junwoo's eyes narrow with appreciation. You've thought about this. Thought about nothing else for 3 days. She meets his gaze steadily. I have a plan, Junwoo, but you're not going to like it. Me, I go to the gallery as a client. She holds up a hand to stop his immediate protest. Listen to me. I'm the wife of Seo Junwoo, a legitimate reason to be interested in East Asian antiquities. I've been out of the country for weeks. I can claim I want to start collecting again now that I'm back. While you're there, I gain access to the inner workings. I see things your men can't see because they don't know what to look for. Her hand moves to her belly, unconscious and protective. I'm not suggesting I do anything dangerous, just reconnaissance. Silence stretches between them. Junwoo's face is carved from stone, his eyes dark with emotions she can't quite read. Asking me, he says slowly, to let my pregnant wife walk into the stronghold of a woman who wants to destroy me. I'm asking you to trust me. She steps closer, her hands finding his chest. I know you want to protect me. I know you'd burn down the world before letting anyone hurt me. But protection isn't the same as control, Junwoo. And I am not the kind of woman who sits at home and waits. I know that. His voice is rough. I've always known that. It's why I fell in love with you. Then let me do this. Let me help you end this threat so our son can be born into a world where his parents have already won. He stares at her for a long moment. Then slowly his hands come up to cup her face. You are the most terrifying woman I have ever known. That a yes? It's a conditional yes. His thumb strokes her cheekbone. You go in wired. My men will be positioned throughout the building. And at the first sign of danger, you extract me immediately, I know. She rises on her toes to kiss him. Thank you for trusting me. Don't trust the situation, but I trust you absolutely, always. Gallery reconnaissance happens the next day. Isabella dresses carefully, projecting exactly the image she needs. Wealthy collector, sophisticated taste, casual interest in expanding her collection. She wears a navy maternity dress that costs more than most people's rent, pearl earrings that Junwoo bought her on their 6-month anniversary, and low heels sensible enough for escape if necessary. Director Yoon of the gallery greets her personally, a woman with sharp eyes and a sharper smile, who clearly knows exactly who Isabella is. Kang, what a pleasure. The pleasure is mine. Isabella keeps her expression pleasant, her body language relaxed. I've heard wonderful things about your collection. Tour that follows is extensive and impressive. Director Yoon guides her through room after room of stunning pieces, Goryeo Celadon, Joseon paintings, Tang Dynasty ceramics. Isabella examines everything with practiced attention, asking questions, making notes, playing her part perfectly. But beneath the performance, she's cataloging. Security cameras in unusual locations. Staff who move with military precision. A door marked private that leads to a storage area far larger than any legitimate gallery would need. That's awaiting authentication before display. Director Yoon says smoothly when Isabella's gaze lingers on the door. Quite a backlog. We've had a busy quarter. Isabella smiles and lets herself be led away. But she's already seen what she needed to see, and more importantly, she's planted the seed of interest that will give her a reason to return. The debrief happens in Junwoo's office, surrounded by his inner circle. The storage area is the key, Isabella reports, pointing to a rough map she's drawn. At least 40 shipping containers, far more than any legitimate operation would need. And the security is excessive, 3 locked doors, biometric scanners, armed guards who tried to look casual but definitely weren't. Weapons? Minsu asks. Possibly, or drugs, or both. Isabella hesitates. But there's something else. When I was examining the displayed pieces, I noticed something odd about one of the Goryeo Celadon vases. The glaze was wrong, too uniform, missing the natural variations you'd see in a genuine 12th century piece. Forgery, a very good one, but yes. Her mind races through the implications. What if that's part of their operation? They sell forgeries to clients as genuine, then use the real pieces for something else. Such, don't know yet, but I know someone who might. Every head in the room turns toward her. Lee Sung-ho, she says, former director of antiquities authentication for Christie's Korea. He was forced out 2 years ago under suspicious circumstances. There were rumors he'd gotten too close to uncovering a major forgery ring. He might know something about what's happening at Eternal Spring. Junwoo's eyes meet hers. You want to contact him. I want to have lunch with him, professionally. one art historian to another. She holds his gaze. He won't talk to your people, Junwoo, but he might talk to me. Silence stretches. Then, slowly, Junwoo nods. It up. Lee Sung-ho agrees to meet her at a restaurant in Insadong, Seoul's traditional arts district. He's older than Isabella expected, mid-60s, silver-haired, with the slightly disheveled look of an academic who has spent too many years caring more about artifacts than appearances. His eyes are sharp, though, and they sweep over Isabella with obvious assessment as she lowers herself carefully into the chair across from him. Kang, I was surprised to get your call. I imagine you were. She doesn't waste time on pleasantries. I need information, Dr. Lee, about a gallery called Eternal Spring. Something flickers in his expression, fear, quickly suppressed. I'm not sure I know what you mean. I think you do. 2 years ago, you were investigating a forgery ring operating out of Gangnam. A week before you were supposed to publish your findings, you were forced out of Christie's. The investigation was shut down. The forgeries continued. Isabella leans forward slightly. I think you got too close to something dangerous, and I think you know exactly what's happening at Eternal Spring. Lee is silent for a long moment. His hands tremble slightly around his teacup. You don't know what you're asking, he says finally. The people behind that gallery. They're not the kind of people you can challenge and survive. I'm married to Seo Junwoo. I know. Lee's voice drops to barely a whisper. That's why I agreed to meet you, because your husband is the only person in Seoul who might actually be able to stop them. Isabella's heart pounds. Tell me everything. And he does. The story that emerges is worse than anything she'd imagined. Park Yoon-jae isn't just running a money laundering operation. She's building a network, a web of compromised officials, blackmailed businessmen, and corrupted law enforcement that reaches into the highest levels of Korean society. The gallery is her headquarters, but the real operation is the information she's gathered. Secrets, scandals, enough evidence to destroy dozens of powerful people if they ever step out of line. She calls it the ledger, Lee explains, his voice shaking. Digital records of every transaction, every crime, every dirty secret she's collected over 20 years. It's stored somewhere in that gallery. I never found out exactly where, but whoever controls the ledger controls Seoul. She's using it to build an army, Isabella finishes, forcing people to work for her by threatening to expose them, or their families, or their businesses. Lee's eyes are haunted. I have a daughter, Mrs. Kang, a granddaughter. When they threaten to, he breaks off, unable to continue. Isabella reaches across the table to touch his hand. I'm so sorry. If your husband can destroy that ledger, if he can break her hold on all those people. Lee's grip tightens on hers. He would be doing more than just protecting himself. He would be saving everyone she's ever threatened. Isabella sits back, her mind racing. The ledger changes everything. It's not just about territory or power, it's about control over an entire city. And if Junwoo can get his hands on it, how do I find it? I don't know exactly, but I know when it will be most vulnerable. Lee's voice drops even lower. The 15th. Every 15th, Park Yoon-jae personally supervises a data transfer, uploading new information to the ledger, updating her records. It's the only time the system is accessible from outside the main storage. This 15th is tomorrow. I know. Lee's eyes meet hers. That's why I agreed to meet you today, Mrs. Kang. Because tomorrow might be your only chance. Isabella returns to the penthouse with information that changes the entire shape of their plan. Ledger, Junwoo says slowly after she's finished explaining. She's been building leverage for 20 years and we never knew. You couldn't have known. She's been careful. Isabella moves to his side, her hand finding his. But now we have an advantage. We know when she's vulnerable and we know what we're looking for. It's too risky. His jaw tightens. You've already done more than enough. Let me handle this part. Junwoo. I mean it, Isabella. He turns to face her, his eyes blazing with barely contained fear. You're 24 weeks pregnant. You've infiltrated a hostile gallery, met with a terrified witness, and uncovered a conspiracy that spans the entire city. You've done everything I could possibly ask and more. Now let me do what I do best. She wants to argue. Every instinct screams at her to stay involved, to see this through, to be there when it all falls apart. But she sees the desperation in his eyes, the fear that has lived there since the moment he learned she was pregnant, and she knows this is one battle she can't win. Promise me you'll be careful. I promise. Promise me you'll come home. He pulls her close, his arms wrapping around her with desperate tenderness. I will always come home to you, Jajia. Always. The 15th arrives with the kind of cold, clear weather that makes Seoul look like it's carved from crystal. Isabella spends the morning packing the penthouse, unable to focus on anything except the operation unfolding across the city. Junwoo has 60 men in position, surrounding the gallery, monitoring communications, ready to move the moment the ledger becomes accessible. Min-soo calls at noon. We're in position. The data transfer should begin within the hour. Junwoo, leading the extraction team personally. He wanted to be the one to face her. Of course he did. Isabella closes her eyes, pressing her hand to her belly. The baby kicks, strong and rhythmic, as though sensing her anxiety. The next 3 hours are the longest of her life. She tries to eat. She tries to rest. She tries to do anything except imagine her husband walking into danger, facing a woman who has spent 20 years plotting revenge against his family. At 3:47 p.m., her phone rings. It's done. Junwoo's voice is rough with exhaustion, but underneath the exhaustion, she hears something else. Triumph. We have the ledger. Park Yoon-jae is in custody. Her operation is finished. Relief floods through her, so intense she has to sit down. You're okay. I'm okay. A pause. I'm coming home, Jajia. We won. She's crying by the time she hangs up. Crying and laughing and pressing her hands to her belly, whispering promises to their unborn child that his father is safe, that the danger has passed, that everything is going to be okay. But as the minutes tick by, a new anxiety begins to build. 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. Junwoo should have been home by now. Isabella calls his phone. It goes straight to voicemail. She calls Min-soo. Same result. She calls every number in her contacts, guards, lieutenants, anyone who might know where her husband is. No one answers. By midnight, the anxiety has transformed into full-blown terror. Something has gone wrong. Something has happened that Junwoo never saw coming. And Isabella is sitting in the penthouse, surrounded by guards who know nothing, waiting for news that refuses to come. At 12:17 a.m., the elevator doors open. Isabella is on her feet before she consciously decides to move, her heart in her throat, her hands pressed against her belly as though she can protect her child from whatever is about to come through those doors. It's Min-soo. His face is ashen. His hands are shaking and there's blood on his shirt. Kang, his voice breaks. There's been an incident. Isabella doesn't remember crossing the room. One moment she's standing by the window, her heart frozen mid-beat. The next, her hands are fisted in Min-soo's bloody shirt, pulling him toward her with a strength she didn't know she possessed. Where is he? Mrs. Kang, where is my husband? Min-soo's face crumples. In all the years she's known him, all the violence he's witnessed, all the death he's dealt, she's never seen him look like this. Broken, terrified. Hospital, Samsung Medical Center, he's in surgery. Drive takes 12 minutes. Isabella spends every second of it in absolute silence, her hands pressed against her belly, her mind refusing to process the information Min-soo keeps trying to give her. Ambush at the extraction point. 3 of their men dead. Junwoo shot twice, once in the shoulder, once in the abdomen. Park Yoon-jae had a second team, a backup plan, a trap within a trap that no one saw coming. She's dead, Min-soo says, his voice hollow. He killed her before he went down, but the damage was done. Hospital is a blur of fluorescent lights and antiseptic smells and doctors speaking in rapid Korean that Isabella's panicked mind can barely translate. They take her to a private waiting room, the kind of room they reserve for families who might lose someone, and leave her there with nothing but her fear and her unborn child. Minutes pass. Hours. The baby kicks and kicks, refusing to settle, as though sensing that something is terribly wrong. At 4:23 a.m., a surgeon appears in the doorway. His face is exhausted, his scrubs stained with blood that could be Junwoo's. Isabella rises to meet him, her legs trembling beneath her, her hands gripping the chair for support. Kang, is he alive? He's alive. The surgeon exhales slowly. The shoulder wound was straightforward, through and through, no major arteries. The abdominal wound was more complicated. The bullet damaged his spleen and nicked his liver. We had to remove the spleen entirely. He lost a significant amount of blood. He's alive. He's alive. The surgeon's eyes soften slightly. He's in the ICU. You can see him in a few hours once he's stabilized. Isabella's knees give out. She doesn't faint. She's too stubborn to faint, but she does have to grip the surgeon's arm to stay upright, her whole body shaking with relief so intense it feels like pain. He's alive, she whispers. He's alive. They let her see him at dawn. The ICU is quiet, dimmed, filled with the soft beeping of monitors and the hum of machines keeping people alive. Junwoo lies in a bed that seems too small for him, surrounded by tubes and wires and equipment that looks terrifyingly fragile. His face is pale. His eyes are closed, but his chest rises and falls with steady, even breaths. Isabella sinks into the chair beside his bed and takes his hand in hers. "You promised," she whispers. "You promised you'd come home." He doesn't respond. The machines keep beeping. The sun rises over Seoul, painting the hospital room gold, and Isabella waits. The first 2 days are the hardest. Junwoo drifts in and out of consciousness, never fully awake, never able to recognize her. The doctors say it's normal. His body is healing, focusing all its energy on recovery. But every time his eyes flutter closed, Isabella feels her heart stop. She doesn't leave the hospital. Minsu brings her food she doesn't eat, clothes she doesn't change into, updates about the empire she can barely process. The baby kicks constantly now, restless and unhappy, and Isabella starts talking to them just to fill the silence. "Your father is strong," she says, her hand on her belly, her eyes on Junwoo's face. "He's the strongest man I've ever known. He's going to wake up and he's going to meet you and he's going to love you so much it will be embarrassing." Junwoo's fingers twitch in her grasp. "That's right," she whispers. "Keep fighting." On the third day, he opens his eyes. Really opens them, not the hazy, unseeing flutters of the past 2 days, but a clear, focused gaze that finds her face and stays there. "Isabella." His voice is a rasp, barely audible, but it's the most beautiful sound she's ever heard. "I'm here." She squeezes his hand, tears streaming down her face. "I'm right here." "The baby?" "Fine, we're both fine." She brings his hand to her belly, letting him feel the kick that comes immediately. "See, he's been waiting for you to wake up." Something softens in Junwoo's expression, pain and relief and love all tangled together. "I promised I'd come home." "You did. You're here." "The same." His eyes close briefly. "I promised I'd keep you safe, and I almost—" "Don't." Her voice is fierce. "Don't you dare apologize for surviving. You came home, that's all that matters." He opens his eyes again, and this time she sees the full weight of what he's feeling, the fear, the guilt, the desperate love that has driven every choice he's made since the moment they met. "I need to tell you something," he says quietly. "Later, when you're stronger. Now," his grip tightens on her hand. "Isabella, I need you to understand why I have to do what I'm about to do." Cold fear slithers through her chest. "What are you talking about?" "The ledger." He pauses, gathering strength. "We have it. Everything Park Yoon-jae collected, every secret, every crime, every piece of leverage she ever used. It's ours now." "I know, Minsu told me. What he didn't tell you is what I'm planning to do with it." Junwoo's eyes hold hers with an intensity that makes her breath catch. "I'm going to destroy it." "Destroy it?" Isabella stares at him. "But that information could be worth billions. You could use it to become exactly what she was, a blackmailer, a manipulator, someone who holds secrets over people's heads to control them." He shakes his head slightly. "I've built my power on violence, Isabella, on fear. And until 3 days ago, I thought that was necessary. I thought it was the only way to protect what I loved. Now I've realized that violence doesn't protect you from violence. It just invites more of it." His hand moves to her belly, trembling. "I nearly died because I built an empire on blood. I nearly left you alone. I nearly—" His voice breaks. "I nearly made our son grow up without a father." Isabella covers his hand with hers. "You didn't." "I could have, and I will someday if I keep living this way." He looks at her with something she's never seen before, not just love, but decision. "I want to change, Jajia. I want to build something different, something our children can be proud of." "Children," she manages a watery smile. "We only have the one." Now, his lips curve slightly. "I want more. I want a life with you, a real life, not this constant war. And the first step is destroying the ledger and everything it represents." She should argue. She should point out all the ways this could go wrong, all the enemies who will see his mercy as weakness, all the dangers that will follow. But looking at him now, pale and wounded and more vulnerable than she's ever seen him, she understands something fundamental. This isn't about strategy. This is about becoming the kind of man he can live with, the kind of father their son deserves. "Okay," she says softly. "Destroy it." Relief floods his features. "You trust me." "I've always trusted you." She leans down to press her forehead against his. "I've just been waiting for you to trust yourself." Recovery takes weeks. Junwoo is transferred from the ICU to a private suite, and Isabella finally agrees to leave his side long enough to shower and change. But she sleeps in the chair beside his bed every night, her hand in his, refusing to be separated for more than a few hours. During the days, they talk. Really talk about their childhoods, their fears, the future they want to build. Junwoo tells her about his father, the original CEO who built the empire through brutality and terror. He tells her about the first man he killed at 17 and the way his father had smiled. "I thought that was love," he says, his voice hollow. "The approval, the pride, I didn't understand until much later that it was just grooming. He was turning me into a weapon. Now I want to be something different." He looks at her belly where their child grows. "I want him to see a father who built things instead of destroying them, who solved problems without violence, who earned respect instead of fear. That's a lot to ask of yourself." "I know." His hand finds hers. "But I have you, and you've always believed I could be more than what I was born into." Tears come before she can stop them. "I didn't just believe it, I knew it. From the moment I saw you looking at that painting, the one of chaos and destruction, I knew you were looking at something you wanted to escape, not something you wanted to become." His voice is wondering. "How did you see that when I couldn't?" "Because I was looking for the man beneath the monster." She brings his hand to her lips. "And I found him." Ledger is destroyed 3 weeks later. Isabella doesn't witness it directly, but Junwoo shows her the video afterward. A secure server room, flames consuming decades of secrets, and Minsu watching with an expression that suggests he still thinks his boss has lost his mind. "It's done," Junwoo says. "No more leverage, no more blackmail, just a clean start." "What about the people who were being controlled? The officials, the businessmen?" "I had Minsu contact them individually. Told them the ledger was destroyed, their secrets were safe, and they owe me nothing." He pauses. "Most of them didn't believe it at first. A few still don't. But eventually word will spread. That Seo Junwoo has gone soft. Word that Seo Junwoo has changed." His eyes meet hers. "There's a difference." Transition begins immediately. It's not easy. Rivals test him constantly, looking for weaknesses they can exploit. 3 times in the first month, attempts are made on his territory, small incursions, probing attacks to see how he'll respond. Each time, Junwoo responds with overwhelming force. But the force is targeted, precise, surgical. He defeats his enemies without destroying them. He sends messages without leaving bodies, and slowly, grudgingly, the underworld begins to understand. Seo Junwoo isn't weak. He's just fighting differently now. And the man who was terrifying when he ruled through violence is somehow even more terrifying when he rules through calculated restraint. "More afraid of you than ever," Isabella observes one evening, watching the news coverage of a competitor who just surrendered his entire operation rather than face Junwoo's legal team. "Good." He pulls her against his side. "Fear keeps us safe. I'm just redirecting it." Baby comes a month early. Isabella wakes at 3 a.m. with contractions and a spreading wetness, and for one terrified moment she thinks something has gone wrong. The stress, the trauma, the months of danger finally catching up to them. But the doctors assure her everything is fine. Early, but fine. The baby is healthy, active, ready to meet the world. Junwoo is there through all of it, holding her hand, murmuring encouragement, looking terrified in a way that would be hilarious if she weren't in the middle of the most painful experience of her life. At 7:42 a.m., Seo Minjun enters the world. 6 pounds, 3 ounces, dark eyes, sharp jaw, a scream of indignation that makes the nurses smile and his father cry. "He's perfect," Junwoo whispers, his hands shaking as he holds his son for the first time. "Isabella, he's so perfect." "Looks like you, has your strength." He looks up at her, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you for this, for him, for everything." She reaches out to touch their son's tiny hand. "We made this together." Made everything together. He leans down to kiss her forehead. "And we'll make more, a life, a future, everything I never thought I could have." The first year of Minjun's life is the happiest Isabella has ever known. Junwoo's transformation continues, the empire gradually shifting from illegal operations to legitimate business, the violence receding to distant memory. There are still challenges, still enemies, still moments when the old darkness flickers in his eyes. But he never gives in to it. He's building something new. The real test comes 14 months after Minjun's birth. Isabella is in the nursery, watching her son take his first steps, when her phone buzzes with an urgent message from Minsu. Emergency. Someone's taken hostages at the Gangnam Hotel. They're demanding to see the boss. Her blood runs cold. Not because of the danger, she's learned to live with danger, but because of what this means. Someone is testing Junwoo's resolve. Someone wants to see if the new Seo Junwoo will respond with the old Seo Junwoo's methods. She calls her husband immediately. "I know." His voice is tight but controlled. "I'm on my way there now. What are you going to do?" "What I have to." A pause. "Trust me, Jajia." The hostage situation unfolds on live television. Isabella watches from the penthouse, Min-jun in her arms, as cameras capture her husband walking into the Gangnam Grand Hotel alone. No weapons, no army, just Seo Junwoo facing a madman who has 12 hostages and nothing to lose. The standoff lasts 6 hours. At the end of it, the hostages are freed unharmed. The perpetrator is in custody, alive, despite everything. And Junwoo emerges from the hotel to a crowd of reporters and cameras, looking exhausted but triumphant. "How did you convince him to surrender?" a reporter shouts. Junwoo's eyes find the nearest camera, find her, watching from home. "I talked to him. I listened. I found out what he really wanted and offered him a path that didn't end in death. That's not the Seo Junwoo we know." A small smile curves his lips. "It's the Seo Junwoo I'm becoming." That night, after Min-jun is asleep and the penthouse is quiet, Isabella finds her husband standing by the window, staring out at the city he's spent his life controlling. You could have killed him. It would have been easier, probably. She moves to stand beside him, her hand finding his. "Why didn't you?" "Because my son was watching." He turns to look at her. "Not literally, he's too young. But someday he'll be old enough to understand. And when he asks his father about tonight, I want to tell him I found another way. Even if it was harder. Especially because it was harder." His arm wraps around her shoulders. "The easy path led me to a hospital bed, nearly dead, almost losing everything that mattered. The hard path is what I'm walking now. And every time I stay on it, every time I choose restraint over violence, negotiation over destruction, I'm proving that it's possible to change." Isabella leans into him, breathing in his warmth. "I'm proud of you." "I know." He presses his lips to her hair. "That's the only thing that matters." 3 years later, they attend Min-jun's 4th birthday party in the penthouse garden. The party is small, family, close friends, a handful of executives from Seo Industries, the legitimate corporation that now comprises most of Junwoo's empire. Min-jun tears through presents with joyful abandon while his 18-month-old sister, Hana, watches with wide-eyed fascination. Isabella stands at the edge of the party, watching her family, and feels something settle in her chest. Peace, perhaps, or contentment, or the simple, profound satisfaction of a life well chosen. Junwoo appears at her side, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. "Penny for your thoughts. I'm thinking about the first time I saw you." She accepts the glass with a smile. "Standing in front of that painting, looking like the loneliest man in the world. I was the loneliest man in the world." He follows her gaze to their children. "And now I have more love than I know what to do with. That's not a bad problem to have. It's the best problem." He turns to face her. "Isabella, I need to tell you something." Heart skips. After everything they've been through, those words still have the power to make her nervous. "What is it?" "The prosecutors came to see me yesterday. They offered me a deal, full immunity for testimony about my past activities. Everything I've done, every crime I've committed, wiped clean in exchange for helping them take down other organizations." Ice slides through her veins. "What did you tell them?" "I told them no." She stares at him. "But immunity. Immunity would mean admitting what I was, putting it on record, creating evidence that could be used against you, against our children, against anyone they decide to target later." He shakes his head. "I'm not giving them that power." "So what happens now?" "Nothing." His smile is calm, confident. "They have suspicions, but no proof. Everything from my past has been buried, cleaned, erased, and everything from my present is legitimate." He takes her hand. "We're safe, Jajia, really safe. The empire I built on blood is gone, and the empire I'm building now can withstand any scrutiny." She wants to believe him. She desperately wants to believe that all the danger is finally over, that their children can grow up without the shadows that have haunted their parents. "Sure, I'm sure." He pulls her close. "I've been planning this for years, since the moment I held Min-jun for the first time. I knew I had to create something clean, something untouchable, something that could never be taken from us, and I've done it. What about your enemies?" "What enemies?" "The ones who tested me are gone or allied. The ones who waited are now part of my legitimate network, and the ones who still hate me." His smile turns sharp. "They're too afraid to move against someone who can destroy them without breaking any laws." She laughs despite herself. "You're terrifying, you know that? Only to people who threaten what's mine." He cups her face in his hands. "To you, to our children, I'm just a man who loves you more than anything in the world." "I know." She rises on her toes to kiss him. "I've always known." Behind them, Min-jun shrieks with laughter as he chases his sister around the garden. The sun is setting over Seoul. painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. And Isabella Kang, former art historian, wife of a reformed mafia boss, mother of 2 perfect children, feels something she never expected to feel, complete. But as they turn back to the party, Junwoo's phone buzzes with a message that makes his expression flicker, just for a moment. Just enough for Isabella to notice. What is it? Nothing. He pockets the phone. Business, I'll handle it later. She wants to press, but Min-jun is running toward them, demanding attention, and the moment passes. Later that night, after the children are asleep and the penthouse is quiet, Isabella finds Junwoo in his office, staring at his phone with an expression she hasn't seen in years. The expression of a man facing a threat he didn't expect. "Tell me," she says from the doorway. He looks up. For a moment, she thinks he might refuse, might try to protect her from whatever darkness has surfaced. Then he sighs and holds out the phone. The message is simple, unsigned, terrifying. "I know what you did 20 years ago. I have proof. And if you don't want your perfect life destroyed, you'll meet me at Eternal Spring. Tomorrow, midnight. Come alone." Isabella's blood turns to ice. 20 years ago, before we met, before I became who I am now. Junwoo's voice is heavy. "There are things from my past, Isabella, things I've never told you, things I hoped would stay buried forever." Things. He's silent for a long moment. When he speaks, his voice is barely a whisper. "Worst thing I ever did. The thing that made me the monster you married." His eyes meet hers. "Someone knows, and tomorrow I have to face it." Past, it seems, isn't finished with them yet. Isabella doesn't sleep that night. She lies beside Junwoo in their bed, his arms wrapped around her, his breathing steady, too steady, the controlled rhythm of a man who is also wide awake. Between them, silence stretches like a blade. "Tell me," she says finally. "Whatever it is, I need to know before you face it." His arms tighten. For a long moment, she thinks he won't answer. Then, "I killed a woman." Words hang in the darkness. Isabella's heart stops, restarts, pounds against her ribs. 20 years ago, Junwoo continues, his voice hollow. "I was 18. My father had given me my first real mission, prove my loyalty, prove I was worthy of inheriting the empire. There was a prosecutor. She was getting too close to our operations, couldn't be bought, couldn't be intimidated. So your father ordered you to kill her." His voice breaks slightly. "He ordered me to kill her family, her husband, her teenage son, make it look like a home invasion, send a message." Horror floods Isabella's veins. "And you? I couldn't do it. The husband and son, they were innocent. They had nothing to do with her work." His body shakes against hers. "So I killed her instead, made it quick, made it look like she died in a car accident, and I told my father the family was dead, that I disposed of the bodies. Believed you. He was proud of me, said I'd finally become a true CEO." The bitterness in his voice is absolute. "I've carried that with me every day since." The prosecutor's name was Choi Yeon-soo. She was 42 years old. She had 2 weeks until her wedding anniversary. Isabella's mind races through the implications. And now someone knows. Someone has proof, apparently. I don't know how I was careful, so careful, but someone must have seen something, photographed something. His arms release her, and he sits up, his back a rigid line of tension. "If this goes public, everything I've built crumbles. The legitimate business, the political connections, the protection I've created for you and the children, all of it. What about the husband and son? Do they know?" "I don't know." His voice is haunted. "I've kept track of them over the years. The son, he would be 38 now. His name is Choi Sung-min. He became a journalist, investigative reporting. He's made a career out of exposing corruption." Floods Isabella's chest. "A journalist, someone who knows how to dig for evidence." "You think he's the one who sent the message?" "It makes sense." Junwoo turns to face her, his features barely visible in the darkness. 20 years of waiting, 20 years of searching for the truth about his mother, and now he's finally found it. Isabella's mind shifts into analytical mode, the same skills she uses to unravel forged authentication records now applied to a far deadlier puzzle. The location, Eternal Spring, that's where Park Yoon-jae operated. "I know. It's been shuttered since her death. Empty, private." Her hands clench in the sheets. "A perfect place for a confrontation with no witnesses." "You can't go. I have to." His voice is quiet but absolute. "If Choi Sung-min really has proof, if he plans to publish it, then meeting him is my only chance to stop it, to explain, to offer him something that matters more than revenge. He's had 20 years to dream about this moment. You killed his mother. What could you possibly offer him?" "The truth." Junwoo's hand finds hers in the darkness. "The full truth, not just about that night, but about everything. Why she died, who ordered it, what my father would have done if I hadn't stopped him. The husband and son would be dead. I saved their lives by taking hers." His voice cracks. I'm not looking for absolution, Isabella. I know what I did was unforgivable, but maybe if he understands the choice I faced, he'll still hate you. Probably. His grip tightens. But he might hate me in a way that doesn't destroy everything else. My children, your safety, the life we've built. Isabella closes her eyes, feeling the weight of all the choices that led them here. The painting she approached at a gallery opening, the monster she chose to love, the family she built with a man whose past is soaked in blood. I'm coming with you. You don't get to make that decision alone. Her voice is fierce. We face everything together. That's what we promised. Choi Sung-min wants to destroy you. He'll destroy me too. Our children will grow up with a father in prison and a mother who couldn't protect him. She sits up, facing him directly. I need to be there. I need to look him in the eye and make him understand what he'll be taking from us. Lost his mother. I refuse to lose my husband. Her hand finds his face in the darkness. Please, Junwoo, let me stand beside you. Silence stretches. She feels his jaw clench under her palm, feels the war between his desperation to protect her and his knowledge that she's right. Together, he says finally. But you stay behind me, and if anything goes wrong, it won't. She kisses him, tasting the fear on his lips. Because we've survived worse. The next night, they drive to Eternal Spring. The gallery has been abandoned since Park Yoon-jae's death, its windows dark, its entrance chained, its elegant facade slowly succumbing to neglect. Min-soo and his men are positioned around the perimeter, invisible but ready, prepared for any scenario except the one Junwoo is hopping for, peace. They enter through a side door that someone has left unlocked. Inside, the gallery is a ghost of its former self. Display cases empty, walls bare, dust thick on every surface. Isabella walks close to Junwoo, her hand in his, her heart pounding with each step. In the main exhibition hall, a man is waiting for them. Choi Sung-min is tall, thin, with the sharp features and haunted eyes of someone who has spent his life chasing shadows. He stands in front of an empty display case, hands in his pockets, watching them approach with an expression of absolute hatred. Junwoo. His voice echoes in the empty space. I wondered if you'd actually come. I received your message. Junwoo stops 10 feet away, positioning his body between Sung-min and Isabella. You said you have proof. Do. Sung-min reaches into his jacket, producing a phone. Photographs, audio, enough to prove that Park Sung-jin, your father's rival, saw you that night, saw you kill my mother. He documented it as leverage, but he died before he could use it. His daughter kept the records. Park Yoon-jae was saving them for the right moment. And when you destroyed her, I found them in the rubble of her organization. His hand shakes as he holds out the phone. For 20 years, I searched for answers. 20 years of dead ends and sealed records and people too afraid to talk. And then, 2 months ago, I finally found the truth. Isabella watches his face, seeing the grief beneath the rage. This is a man who has built his entire life around loss, a son who never stopped mourning, who never stopped seeking justice. Truth is more complicated than what you found, she says. Sung-min's eyes snap to her. You're his wife. Do you know what he did, the monster you married? I know everything. She steps forward, ignoring Junwoo's soft sound of protest. I know he killed your mother, I know he's never forgiven himself, and I know what would have happened if he hadn't. Sung-min's face contorts. What could possibly justify? You. Isabella's voice cuts through his rage. Your father, your lives. Silence is absolute. My father ordered the execution of your entire family, Junwoo says quietly. A home invasion, all 3 of you dead, as a message to anyone who thought they could challenge him. I was 18 years old, sent to prove myself by committing mass murder. You chose to kill only my mother. Sung-min's voice cracks. As if that makes you a hero. It makes me a monster who faced an impossible choice. Junwoo takes a step forward. I could follow my father's orders exactly. Kill you, kill your father, kill everyone your mother loved. Or I could find another way. A way that protected the innocent and still satisfied my father's need for blood. My mother was innocent. Your mother was a prosecutor investigating organized crime. She knew the risks. Junwoo's voice holds no defense, only brutal honesty. I'm not asking you to forgive me. What I did is unforgivable. But I'm asking you to understand that without my choice, you would be dead. Your father would be dead. Your mother would still be dead. I'm supposed to thank you. Sung-min laughs, the sound bitter and broken. Thank you for making me grow up without a mother. Thank you for letting me spend 20 years believing she died in an accident, never knowing the truth. No. Isabella moves to stand beside Junwoo. You're supposed to decide what happens next. Sung-min stares at her. What? You have proof. You're a journalist. You could publish everything, destroy my husband, destroy our family, make sure our children grow up knowing their father is a murderer. She holds his gaze. Or you could choose something different. Something different. His voice is incredulous. Like what? Pretending none of this happened. Like honoring what your mother was trying to do. Isabella's heart pounds, but her voice stays steady. She was fighting corruption. Fighting the people who thought they were above the law. If you destroy my husband now, the husband who has spent the last 4 years dismantling everything his father built, you're not continuing her work. You're just trading one form of destruction for another. Sungmin's expression wavers. For the first time, uncertainty flickers behind the rage. My husband has changed. Isabella continues, pressing her advantage. The man who killed your mother doesn't exist anymore. The empire of violence is gone. What's left is a legitimate business, a family, children who have never seen their father hurt anyone. If you destroy that, if you take him from us, you're not punishing the monster. You're punishing the man who killed the monster. Pretty words. But Sungmin's voice has lost some of its edge. Do I know any of it is true? Because I'm standing here. Isabella's hand finds Junwoo's, gripping tight. I'm an art historian from Atlanta. I have a master's degree from Columbia. I had choices, so many choices about who to love, who to marry, who to build a life with, and I chose him. Not because I didn't know what he was, but because I saw what he could become. What is that? A good father. A good husband. A man who wakes up every day trying to be better than he was the day before. Tears burn her eyes, but she doesn't let them fall. Your mother would have understood that. She spent her career believing that people could change, that justice was about more than punishment. That's why she became a prosecutor instead of a vigilante. Sungmin flinches. The phone in his hand trembles. I have children, Isabella says softly. A son who's 4 years old, a daughter who's 18 months. They don't know what their father used to be. They only know the man who reads them bedtime stories and builds pillow forts and cries at animated movies when he thinks no one is watching. Her voice breaks. If you publish that proof, you won't just be destroying him. You'll be destroying them. And I don't think that's what your mother would have wanted. Silence stretches. Sungmin stares at them, at Junwoo's bowed head, at Isabella's tear-streaked face, at their joined hands. The hatred in his eyes wars with something else, something that might be doubt. Spent 20 years dreaming of this moment, he says finally. 20 years imagining what I would do when I finally found the truth, and now you have a choice. Junwoo lifts his head, meeting Sungmin's gaze directly. You can destroy me. I won't fight it. If you decide that's what justice requires, I'll accept the consequences. But before you decide, I want to offer you something. What could you possibly offer me? The truth, all of it. Junwoo's voice is steady. Not just about your mother, but about everything my father did. Every crime, every cover-up, every victim who never got justice. I have records, documentation I've kept for exactly this moment. I can give you enough to expose the entire system that killed your mother. The judges who looked away, the police who were bought, the politicians who protected men like my father. Sungmin's eyes widen. You would do that, expose your own family. My family is standing beside me. My children are sleeping in my home. Junwoo's jaw tightens. My father is dead. His legacy is something I've spent years trying to destroy. If giving you the means to expose it buys my children a future, then yes, I'll do it. What about you? You'd be implicated in everything. Not if the documentation focuses on the system rather than the individuals. Isabella speaks up, her mind already racing through possibilities. Junwoo can provide evidence of institutional corruption, enough to fuel a decade of investigative journalism, without directly incriminating himself. You'd have the story of a lifetime. The kind of exposé that wins awards, changes laws, actually makes a difference. Sungmin stares at her. You're trying to manipulate me. Trying to survive. Voice is raw. I'm trying to protect my family, and I'm trying to offer you something better than revenge. Better than revenge? He laughs bitterly. What's better than revenge? Purpose. Isabella holds his gaze. Your mother died trying to expose corruption. You've spent your career following in her footsteps. What I'm offering you is the chance to finish what she started, not with a single conviction, but with systemic change. The kind of change that actually prevents other mothers from being murdered. Gallery falls silent. Sungmin looks down at the phone in his hand, the proof that could destroy them, the weapon he's waited 20 years to wield, then slowly he lowers it. I need time, he says, to think, to verify what you're offering. His eyes meet Junwoo's. If I find out you're lying, if any of this is a manipulation, it's not. Junwoo's voice carries absolute conviction. Everything I've told you is the truth, and if you want verification, I'll provide it, whatever you need. I want access to the documentation first, before I make any decisions. You'll have it tomorrow. Sungmin nods slowly. He looks exhausted, wrung out like a man who climbed a mountain only to find the summit wasn't what he expected. I loved her, he says quietly. My mother, she was everything to me, and for 20 years I thought she died in an accident. I thought the universe was just cruel, random. I'm sorry. Junwoo's voice cracks. I know that doesn't help. I know nothing I say can undo what I did, but I am sorry, every day, for the rest of my life. Sungmin looks at him for a long moment. Then he turns and walks toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the empty gallery. At the door, he pauses. Documentation, he says without turning around. If it's real, if it's everything you say, then I'll consider your offer. A pause. But I make no promises. He's gone before either of them can respond. The drive home is silent. Isabella holds Junwoo's hand the entire way, feeling the tremors that run through him, the aftermath of facing a past he thought he'd buried. When they reach the penthouse, he goes straight to the children's rooms, standing in each doorway for long minutes, watching them sleep, breathing in the peace of their innocence. Isabella finds him in Minjun's room, tears streaming silently down his face. She wraps her arms around him from behind. It's okay, we're okay. Now, his voice is hollow. Until he decides. Until he makes his choice. He'll choose the documentation, the chance to expose the system. It's what his mother would have wanted, you said it yourself. I killed his mother, Isabella. Junwoo turns to face her, his expression shattered. I looked him in the eye and admitted it. How can anything I offer possibly? Because you offered him truth. She cups his face in her hands. Because you didn't make excuses or try to justify what you did. You took responsibility. You gave him the full picture. Her thumbs brush away his tears. That matters, maybe not enough, maybe nothing will ever be enough, but it matters. He closes his eyes, leaning into her touch. What if he publishes anyway? Then we face it together, the way we face everything. Children will be loved, will be protected, will know that their father made terrible mistakes and spent the rest of his life trying to make up for them. Her voice is fierce. That's not a shameful legacy, Junwoo, that's a human one. He opens his eyes, looking at her with something like wonder. How do you do that? Do what? See the best in me, even when I show you the worst. Because the best is what's real. She rises on her toes to kiss him gently. The worst is what you survived. Documentation goes to Sungmin the next day. Minsu handles the transfer, delivering boxes of records to a secure location where Sungmin waits with a team of researchers. Everything is there, decades of corruption, carefully preserved by a man who always knew he might need insurance. The waiting begins, days pass. Then weeks. Isabella tries to maintain normalcy, playing with the children, consulting on museum acquisitions, pretending her entire life doesn't hang on the decision of a grieving son. Junwoo throws himself into work, but she sees the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes flick to his phone every few minutes. 3 weeks after the gallery meeting, Sungmin publishes his first article. It's explosive. Institutional corruption spanning 3 decades. Judges, police chiefs, politicians, all exposed with meticulous documentation. The piece names no current individuals, focuses entirely on systems and structures, and calls for sweeping reforms. Junwoo's name appears nowhere in the article. The follow-up pieces continue for months. Each one reveals new layers of corruption, new victims who deserve justice, new evidence of a system designed to protect the powerful at the expense of everyone else. Sungmin becomes famous, award-winning journalist, corruption crusader, the son of a murdered prosecutor continuing her legacy. He never publishes the proof of Junwoo's involvement. He never contacts them again, either. 1 year after the gallery confrontation, Isabella finds an envelope in their mailbox. No return address. No note inside, just a single photograph. A woman in her 40s, dark hair, warm eyes, standing in front of a courthouse with a look of fierce determination. Choi Yeon-soo, the prosecutor, the mother. Isabella shows it to Junwoo that evening. He holds the photograph for a long time, his expression unreadable. Then, carefully, he places it in his desk drawer alongside the few other mementos of his past that he's chosen to keep. Closure, Isabella asks softly. Closure. He looks at her. Reminder of who she was, of what I took from the world. His voice is quiet. I'll never forget her name. I'll never stop trying to honor her memory by being better than the man who killed her. Sungmin made his choice, found his purpose. A ghost of a smile crosses Junwoo's face. His mother would be proud of him. She would be proud of you too. Isabella takes his hand. For telling the truth, for giving him the chance to do something meaningful with his pain. I don't deserve pride. Not. She squeezes his fingers. But you've earned respect, and that's enough for now. 5 years later, they attend Minjun's 9th birthday party in the garden of their new home, not the penthouse. They sold that 2 years ago, moving to a traditional hanok in the quieter outskirts of Seoul. The house has gardens and trees and space for children to run. It feels, Isabella thinks, like something she would have dreamed of as a child herself. Minjun tears through presents while Hana, now 6, helps him with the wrapping paper. Their youngest, Yiwon, 3 years old, sits on Junwoo's lap, watching his siblings with wide, fascinated eyes. 3 children. A legitimate business empire. Marriage that has survived mafia wars, assassination attempts, police investigations, and the ghosts of the past. Not bad, Isabella thinks. Not bad at all. Iyama, Minjun holds up a telescope. Can I look at stars tonight? After dinner, she promises. Your father will help you set it up. Really? He turns to Junwoo with shining eyes. Appa, can we see the moon? We can see whatever you want. Junwoo's voice is soft with a love so profound it makes Isabella's chest ache. The moon, the stars. Anything. Later, after the party is over and the children are in bed, Isabella finds her husband on the back porch staring up at the sky. Happy, he says without turning around. Our children, they're genuinely happy. Of course they are. Wasn't of course, it wasn't inevitable. He turns to face her. For so long I thought happiness was impossible for people like me, that the darkness I was born into would follow me forever, poison everything I touched. Now I have this. His gesture encompasses the garden, the house, the sleeping children inside. This life I never deserved, this family I never thought I could have. Isabella moves to stand beside him, her hand finding his. You built this. Built this. His arm wraps around her shoulders. I provided the resources, you provided the vision, the belief that I could be more than what I was. I just saw what was already there. His voice is fierce. You saw what could be there. What I could become if someone believed in me enough. He turns to face her fully. I love you, Isabella, more than words, more than life, more than anything I've ever loved in my entire existence. I know. She rises on her toes to kiss him. I love you too. Still, after everything. Always. She smiles against his lips. After everything and because of everything. You're not the man I married anymore, you're better. And I'm not the woman who walked into that gallery, I'm stronger. We've grown together, Junwoo. That's what marriage is. I thought marriage was paperwork and shared property. That too, she laughs. But mostly it's this, standing in our garden, watching our children sleep, knowing that whatever comes next, we'll face it together. What does come next? Isabella thinks about the question. The business is stable, thriving, actually, expanding into international markets. The children are healthy and loved. The threats that once seemed endless have faded to distant memories. More of this, she says finally. More birthdays, more quiet evenings, more growing old together. That sounds boring. After everything we've survived, boring sounds perfect. He laughs, the real laugh, the one she fell in love with at that gallery opening so many years ago. You're right, boring sounds absolutely perfect. They stand together in the darkness, watching stars emerge one by one above their home. Behind them, their children dream peaceful dreams. Around them, a city that once feared Seo Junwoo continues its quiet transformation. And between them, love endures, not the desperate, dangerous love of their early years, though echoes of that passion still flare in stolen moments. This is something deeper, something forged in fire and tempered by time, a partnership that has weathered storms that would have destroyed lesser bonds. Isabella, Junwoo's voice is soft. You? What? For walking toward me at that gallery. For seeing something worth saving in the monster. He pulls her closer. For giving me a life I didn't know I wanted until you showed me it was possible. She thinks about all the choices that led them here, the painting she approached, the truth she accepted, the darkness she embraced because the light within him was worth the risk. You would have found your way eventually, she says. No, his voice is certain. Without you, I would have died in that world, probably violently, definitely alone. He tilts her face up, his eyes meeting hers in the starlight. You saved me, Isabella. In every way a person can be saved. She kisses him again, deeper this time, feeling the truth of his words in her bones. Some love stories begin with fireworks and passion. Theirs began with chaos and violence, with monsters and fear, with a world that should have torn them apart 100 times over. But they survived. They built. They became something neither of them could have been alone. And now, standing in the garden of their home while their children sleep and the stars wheel overhead, they understand what they've created together. Not just a family. Not just a life. A legacy, a future, A love that will endure long after they're gone, passed down through the children who carry pieces of them both. Her strength, his transformation, their shared belief that even the darkest past cannot prevent the brightest future. Thank you so much for watching, besties. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something real, please like, share, and subscribe to Black in Korea Stories. Drop a comment and tell me your favorite moment. I read every single one. I'll see you in the next one.